So, Mum, you met Dad. So, what was Dad doing in Mackay at that time? I'm assuming teaching, or
Well, Dad, yes. Originally, Dad had wanted to be a priest, and Nana, I think he went over to Banyo, but I think Nana and Granny went and got him back, and of course that would have been opposite to what I would have. I was always, it was great if you had a nun or a priest in the family. So Dad then went on, because he was quite young, went on to do teaching, and he was in primary teaching, a bit around Brisbane and that, and at one stage Uncle Peter and he both taught together at Anala, which you wouldn't have seen much in those days. And then they brought in that primary school teachers could go in toward high school teachers, which Dad then took on. Now, I don't know whether it was primary or high school. He did teach at Hewenden, and then he came down to Longreach, and he did teach high school at Longreach, and then he was transferred to Mackay State High School, and which we lived near. So that's how he boarded, and he actually boarded with this Mrs. Collins, and she and Mama, Auntie Cairns, they were all in the Legion of Mary together, and she had about 6 boarders. And
where was that, Mum?
Well, that was where Faye Collins lived, on the corner, just 2 houses from where Bernie Wright lived. It was a big old house.
Norris Street there? Or?
Corner of Norris and
that one that
other
Deguara shop.
Yes, that street, I can't think of the street. Yes, and so that's how Dad, and in the end though, he used to leave his car then at Mrs. Heron next door, because she had a garage and Mrs. Collins didn't, so but that's how I met Dad. Anyhow, then after we'd been going together for a while, at the Christmas holidays, he was coming to Brisbane down to the family at the farm, and he wanted me to come and meet his mother and father and his grandmother, who he idolised. His grandfather was dead at that stage. And anyhow, we come out to the farm, and I think my eyes were opened, as everybody that knew and loved Granny. She was fairly big and not the greatest of tidiness, where both Mama and Papa had always been very tidy, and I think when I first met this lady, I did get a bit of a shock, but she turned out lovely, and Nana was beautiful.
Because as we know with Mama always dressed absolutely beautifully, and her shoes were beautiful, and her hair was done beautifully. And
well, then that day that I did meet them, and this is the one memory I have a lot, I will associate it with Mike's dad, who was also known as Mick. He had pretty bad cancer. Now this was Christmas time, and he actually died in the March. But he went inside, and Granny could play the piano, and he had quite a nice voice, and I believe he was a great gymnast and a great runner and a great dancer. And so
apparently he was a good tap dancer too.
Yes,
Uncle Peter was saying. I didn't realise that as well. So yeah.
So Granny got on the piano, and he sang to her, "I'll Take You Home Again, Kathleen." Her name was Kathleen. She wasn't born in Ireland though, but I always associate that song with him being so sick and singing to her. So that was the only time I ever met him. I believe, yes, he was a great dancer and very well liked by people. But
how did he treat you, Mum, when you met him?
Well, I only met him the once.
So he was obviously sick.
He was obviously very sick. He was just what I can remember, very nice. But it was only once that I ever.
Did Dad idolise him, or what? What was Dad's relationship with his father?
Dad mainly lived with Nana. When Dad turned about 5. This is where I think Uncle Peter and I differ. I thought he went to school at Mackay, but because he was sort of too young, eventually he went into live with Nana. But Uncle Peter said that he didn't go to Mackay, he went to Jimboomba, so that I'm not sure of. But because Granny and Mick had the dairy, and then they had Peter, Barry and Kerry very close. I think, and Nana had lost her husband, but she lived with her brother-in-law, Fred. They went in there and they took Mike, and he lived there, and he went to school for a long time at Rosalie, where he met Uncle Jimmy Olsen, a lot of those people. And
that was at Mara's brothers, Rosalie?
Yes.
So he went there from a young age, do you think? He was
I think he went there from about grade 3 or something.
Yeah. Mara's brothers there.
And then I think people like Neil McCluffy and that might have gone there. And they were also in a group in the YCW. So Nana always then had a very, very soft spot for Mike.
She made it was like her child, wasn't it, in the end? So.
And we think, Peter and I were talking the other day, we think she must have paid for all of them to go to Nudgee, because the farm they were reasonably poor. So they all went to Nudgee, and so did Mari went to All Hallows. I thought, again, Dad used to say that as each one finished school and started teaching, they had to pay for the next one to go, but Uncle Peter says no. What was that?
Maybe there was something there, but if you'd heard that story, and maybe Dad he being the eldest, might have had to contribute something when he got a job.
Well, that's what I thought, but I won't be 100% on that.
At that point, Nana and her husband probably had a bit of money then, didn't they?
Oh, well, they knew how to money, and Nana. Nana always idolised him, and we always say Nana would have thought he was the greatest of grandchildren, because she read him, sort of thing, and your father had a wonderful relationship with Nana. He idolised her too, and then Kerry and Lexi stayed with Nana too, so she was in our lives a lot. And unfortunately, she was in Mackay, that she come up to see us, and she died in Mackay. But so that we sort of met that Christmas, and then the following, I think, May, we got engaged, and then it was the following Christmas that we got married, and they all the family, Peter and Lynn, and they had Marty, they came up, and because Barry and Kerry and Mari were in our wedding party, and Auntie Brenda, and they come up to Mackay for our wedding, and consequently after that Nana and Granny, till Nana died, came up to see us in Mackay. So
they came on a regular basis, didn't they, on the train?
Yes. So they come up on the train, and
you got married at St Mary's.
St Mary's out Mackay. Yes.
And what sort of reception did you have? Like,
we had too big of a reception. It was. I knew lots of people. We were in a lot of things. We had about 200, and it was at the Harbour Lights Cafe. But unfortunately, they didn't supply enough food.
Oh no!
Sort of ran out. But look, it was a very nice wedding. And that was the start of our life, and we might finish at that point then.
Yep, and then we'll go on to chapter 4 next
which
time.
Is the Mike and my
rearing
family.
Children next time.
Yes.
So we'll sign off, and Nana's going to have a cup of coffee.
That's right.
And
then go home.
We'll see you next time.
Right.
And here's a close-up of Nana's ring. So it's a diamond, Mum, with diamonds around the side, isn't it? Is that a 1 carat or?
I don't know what it is, but they tell me now that it would have been hand cut, which probably is not as valuable as machine cut, because machine cut would be precise.
Really?
Where hand cut wouldn't be precise.
Oh, hand cut's more personal.
Now you can see that in mine at times the different colours in the different lights, and well I'll say here and now, because Anne hasn't got a ring. That's to be taken off. I don't see. Auntie Brenda got Mum's, because Auntie Brenda's got pinched, and I don't want them buried because it's what happens. And I don't want rosary beads buried with you. I'd rather somebody have the rosary beads. I think the gold used to be 9 carat gold or 18 carat gold. I don't know what it is.
So it used to be 2 different things.
Yeah, that was a wedding ring, but it's got so thin
So you had to
that
blend it together.
they put the wedding ring, it's stuck together to the engagement ring. But see, the thing is now I'd have to get them cut off again. See, that hand's got bad arthritis, that finger. And so I just have to get it cut off.
It's a bit like Mama's wedding ring, isn't it? So it's a bit similar to hers, which is even slightly a bit similar to mine, isn't it?
But at the time, it was quite dear.
So sort of.
Yeah, a little bit.
I think I liked it because of that reason. I think that's one of the reasons I was like it, because your Mama had a similar one and you had one. So I think I was always a bit keen on one, a bit similar. So there you go.
So that's
okay. There were stories of the ring.